Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Dr. Elianique podcast. I am so delighted and grateful to have you here. And in this episode, I am going to ask 5 of the mostly common questions that my clients ask me, and I will share some of the techniques, some of the resources you can use if you have the same questions as well. Stay tuned and let's get started. So, the very first question that I usually get from my clients is around the concept of not being clear. In other words, lack of clarity. I really don't know what to do with my life. Everything is fine on the surface. Like, I have a job, I have the kids, I have migrated probably. Everything seems fine on the surface. But deep down, I feel like something is missing. Deep down, I feel like something is missing. Usually this is categorized under the goal of finding the clarity. What it is that I want to do in my life and with my life. And for this one, what we usually do is to find the person's values. By values, I mean their energy centers. What it is that gets you moving. What it is that gets you excited. What it is that when you are doing, talking about, researching, when you go to the library to find a book about this topic, you just feel a surge of energy in your body. And while coaching, we pay attention to the whole person. By whole person, I mean what you're feeling in your body, what is going on in your mind, how your breath is, and everything in between. Because it's really important to pay attention to the whole person in the coaching process. So the clients who come to me about finding clarity, what it is I want to do in my life, definitely one of the things is to do their values. And then there are some key critical questions I usually ask them. Some of them are really broad, some of them are narrower. The questions like, if money was not an issue in your life, what would you like to do with your life? So this is one of the questions that brings out different parts of the person into the surface. And again, writing, as well as, of course, we talk in the coaching sessions, but then writing about these questions, reflecting on them, and giving some time. So like a good stew, you want it to simmer, you want it to give it time so it just gives out the juice and just becomes really delectable and delicious, that you really want to work on that because you are spending your time and energy on that. Let's face it, our time and energy are the only things that we have access to, and they just help us run and move forward in life. And we want to use them wisely. We don't want to waste them. That's why we have a coach. That's why we are doing these sessions, because we have a purpose. Even if we're not clear on that yet, by finding out what your values are through specific techniques and then working on different scenarios, like the scenario and the story of if money was not an issue, what would you do with your life? The other scenario, which I really like and I work with my clients, is imagine there is no one on planet Earth. One day you wake up, you find yourself that I'm the only living human being on planet Earth. If that's the situation, let's imagine that's the situation, that's the scenario. What would you like to do with your life? Again, this scenario needs a bit of time, reflection, writing, some conversation with the coach. And then you see ideas are coming up to the surface. And then we go and see whether they're aligned with your values or if they align with the vision you have for your life, which is a different thing for itself. And in this scenario of you waking up one day and seeing there's no one on planet Earth, then there's a second part to the scenario. And while you're thinking what I want to do, and you come up with a few options, you understand that in a close by island, there are actually some people. Now, with this new piece of information, with this knowledge, and with those options on the table now, what would you like to do in life now? What would you like to do with your life now, this precious life? This life, which is a blessing. I usually talk in my videos how blessed we are to merely exist, to be able to see, to be able to talk, to be able to taste, feel, touch. Because statistically, the probability of us being us as human beings, each and every one of us, is statistically and according to mathematics, that's a very low probability. So looking at this life through the lens of being a blessing, being a gift, and then deciding that I want to lead an intentional life, a purposeful life, rather than a haphazard one, rather than being on autopilot all the time. This is where the first question, what do I really want to do with my life? I'm not clear and lack of clarity. So one of the most important purposes of me working with my clients is to help them find that clarity. I gave you some of the examples of finding their values, what really matters to them, what really moves them in terms of energy and excitement. And then some scenarios, I gave you some examples of if you don't need to work for money, what would you do with your life? And the scenario of waking up on an island, either being on your own, there's no one else, and then you realize we add another piece of information, another piece of the puzzle, that there might be some people out there. Now, what would you like to do with your life? Which brings in the concept of meaning, because inherently we are meaning-based individuals. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people actually end up becoming nihilists, like there is no meaning in life. Because, my friends, this life in and of itself has no meaning. We as human beings need to create our own meanings. And how do we do that? It goes through our values. It goes through going through different scenarios, some of which I just shared with you. So finding clarity. What should I do with my life? Where am I heading? Who am I? What is my calling? These are all subcategories of the concept of clarity that I work with my clients. The second question and the second topic that I work with my clients falls under the category of what is holding me back? Why am I procrastinating? Why do I put things off? And these are the people who somehow know where they are heading in life. However, they feel like there are some blocks in their life. It could be a mental one, a psychological one, or it could be just lack of a plan, a clear step-by-step plan, what I need to do, when I need to do it, and how I need to chunk it. Chunk means breaking down a big task into its smaller parts. So here, what we do is, of course, we use conversation and we use empowering questions. That's one of the concepts I teach in my courses, how to formulate empowering questions, how to formulate empowering stories. And when people feel stuck, as I said, it could be because something is holding them back. Probably it's related to their past life, like from when they were born up to the moment that we are talking in a coaching session. Or it could be because they do not have a clear map. They do not have the step-by-step plan and path to follow to reach their goal and actually realize their vision. So what we do here is we do a bit of healing. I facilitate some internal conversations using some coaching techniques. And within the techniques, sometimes they are about 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. It depends on the client, depends on the blog. And what happens in the process of these techniques? The clients are having internal conversations with themselves. I am facilitating it. And one by one, we try to remove the blocks. These blocks could be something related to an emotion they have been holding from the past. Or some of them could be specific events that they feel which is weighing down on them and just wasting their energy moving forward to their goals and to their vision. So this is one of the things that I do with my clients in the coaching sessions, and it falls under the category of healing techniques. And the most common technique, which I have a video on my YouTube channel about, is the reframing technique. Imagine there is a feeling, there is a block, there is an event that you feel like is stopping you, hindering you from moving on the path towards your goal. And it's like an image and it has a frame. Remember these frames that we put images on them and just put it around the house? The frame is blocking you. What we do through the reframing technique is we take that event, that story, that meaning, that block, and give it a new frame. And the rule for this new frame is it needs to empower you and it needs to align with what you're moving towards, the goal and the journey and the vision that you have for yourself. And interestingly, the feedback I get from my clients after doing these techniques is, I'm feeling lighter. I feel like I can do it now. The procrastination disappears. The blocks disappear. And as I said, these changes and shifts are neurological, psychological, and in the body level. If we scan the mind, you can see that physically the mind is changing. New neural pathways are being created. So again, we have conversations, we have coaching techniques, definitely we have writing, we have checking in. And I, as the coach, as I always say, I am the light. And I'm helping the client to heal themselves. I am helping the client to remove the blocks. Who is doing the work? The client is doing the work. Whenever my clients thank me and they send me letters, voices, and messages of acknowledgement and gratitude, I love them. I embrace them. And I tell them, you have done the work. You're the person who is invested in their life. You're the person who has had the courage to set a goal, to have a vision, to show up for the sessions and be invested in themselves. And I'm forever grateful towards these people, because these are the people who are working on themselves, who are stopping the intergenerational trauma. And these are the people who make the world a better place for the generations to come, who are not concentrating on themselves only, but they have a long-term thinking. And for me, this is a very much valuable approach towards life. That's a precious philosophy for life. So that's the second question, the second concept I usually work with my clients. And another question which is relevant to the second one, what is stopping me, is what path should I take? What steps should I take? Once we are clear on where we are moving, by having a vision, breaking it down into goals, and then removing the blocks, what we need to do is do some reverse engineering or chunking. Reverse engineering means we write down exactly what it is we want in terms of the goal, and then we reverse engineer it to break it down using the chunking technique to the smallest steps that we can take today, the next day, next week, and next month. And what is important when we are chunking, reverse engineering, coaching, removing the blocks, doing all these processes is to have fun and to be flexible with what we are doing. Why? Because life happens. Unexpected events happen all the time. Challenges arise. And let's face it, this life, it's a game. At the end of it, we're all going to be game over. It's going to come to an end one day. Let's have fun with that. Going back to the concept of empowering questions, one question I give my clients is, ask yourself, how can I achieve my goals while having the most fun doing the things, taking the steps, removing the blocks? I say it again. How can I have the most fun while moving towards my goals, while removing the blocks, while taking the kids to school, while working on this project, while talking to my coach? When you have this empowering mindset based on fun, That's when you can have fun, you can achieve your goals, and you can remove the blocks. So in chunking and reverse engineering, please keep in mind these two important rules, let's call them, having fun and being flexible. Usually I have plan Bs with my clients. For example, let's say they are going to do a task from 10 to 10:30 in the morning every Monday. And if anything happens, they can do it from 6 to 6:30 p.m. in the evening. And I become their accountability partner. They can message me that, okay, Ellie, I have done that. And that's one of the most important reasons why my clients come to me, which takes us to the next point. How can I be accountable? How can I become accountable? And that is, of course, by practicing. Your coach can become your accountability partner. You can message them whenever you have done your tasks, and then you can give yourself a prize. And once you are in the habit of becoming accountable, because you are becoming on the journey of working towards your goals, removing the blocks, working with the coach, chunking, reverse engineering, in all of these techniques and processes, what is happening on a larger scale is you are becoming a newer, more empowered version of yourself. And the coach can be your accountability partner at the beginning of the journey, and little by little, you become autonomous and you become your own accountability partner when you feel like you can do that. And again, there are ways and techniques for that as well. So these are some of the most common questions that my clients come to me with. It is finding the clarity. Why am I here? Who am I? Where am I going? And we find the clarity through some of the techniques that I mentioned. And then what is holding me back? Why am I procrastinating? What is the block that I'm feeling emotionally, physically, psychologically? I help them remove the block. And actually, they do it themselves. As I said, I am just the light for them. And then there are the steps, the chunking, the reverse engineering. We break down what they want to achieve with me into its smaller parts so they can work on them. And then comes the accountability. How can I become accountable? And last but not least, as I said, the most important thing in whatever you're doing is to have fun, to be flexible, and focus on who am I becoming on the journey of realizing this goal. Why am I saying that? Once you are far ahead in the journey, no matter what goal you're working on, you're on the journey of becoming. And there is a moment in your life that you realize, actually, the journey, the process, and the becoming is the goal. I say that again. You're on the journey. You're moving towards a goal. You're removing the blocks. You're feeling the lightness. And there comes a moment in your life that with each and every cell in your body, you realize that, wait a moment, what actually matters is the journey, is the process of becoming, and the goal is the journey. Listen to this several times, because understanding and knowing it has different levels. And once you are here, of course you have a vision. Of course you have a goal. Of course you're working with your coach. Of course you're hitting your targets. Deep down, you're enjoying the journey. Remember the fun and the flexibility? Because that's what matters. That's when you fall in love with the process of achieving a goal. That's when you fall in love with the process of getting who you are, why you are here, what your calling is. That's when you fall in love with the process of dealing with procrastination, dealing with the past events and traumas and the feelings and the blocks that are holding you back. That's when you fall in love with life. And from there on, my friend, you're unstoppable. What I'm telling you, it needs to be experienced. And once you have experienced it, welcome to the journey. From there on, you're going to be loving life no matter what happens. You will be setting your goals, you're going to love life, you're going to hit your targets, and you're going to enjoy the journey, because the journey is what matters, because the becoming is what matters in this lifetime. I hope you have got some value from this episode. And if you have any other questions about coaching, what I do, about the journey, please comment them down below, and I would love to make another video for them. Until another episode, take care and keep shining.